Wuornos murdered them, robbed them, and then drove home in their cars.
Those men were shot, just shot in self-defense, boom, boom, boom. You know, they weren't cut up, they weren't sliced up, no OJ jazz, you know. And he said, I did the most horrendous crime in the whole wide world.
Not true?
I guess not. All they were was shot and left. If it was a horrendous crime, why didn't I shoot them between the eyes, cut their penis off, stick it in their mouth, you know, do all kinds of gross stuff? All they were was shot and left, you know?
Welcome everybody once again to a Safe Place podcast, and Greg's hit me with a bombshell this evening. He wants to articulate what he believes why evil exists. So,
right then, so you asked me to, we're about to do a podcast, aren't we, on a serial killer famous from the film Monster, and it's a sad story, and it made me actually dig deeper and deeper into my own mind and psychology and everything that's out there about why is there so much evil in the world, not just with serial killers, and this story in particular, she was created by her environment. So I wanted to hit you with some bombshells and see how you handle them and see what your answers is, because I'm working on something at the moment.
Go on then. And this hasn't been pre-rehearsed, so I'm feeling a little bit nervous here. He's hitting me with some bombshells. Just make sure you get yourself right in the lens there, pal. There we go.
So basically, there's a statistic out there that under a brain scan, a serial killer does not show up empathy to violent images or the normal stuff that we would feel sad about. And they say that this is a genetic thing, that the empathy might not be able to be learnt. Now, with my own mind, I believe that you can adopt anybody at any age and change belief systems and learn them new lessons, right? So, just like empathy isn't there, I think that other emotions aren't there when you're growing up. I've grown up and had certain skills that other people have had and I haven't. This is just our environment, our parenting.
Perfect way of putting it, yeah.
Yeah, so I believe it's something that happens when they're young. Empathy is like a skill to learn, and if you don't view it or see it, or you see it and you don't like it and you polarize to not want it, or it makes you even the feeling of overlove. Someone just loves you and adores you and it's too much for you. Do you see how you can get to a place, for me, where empathy wouldn't exist?
Absolutely, yeah. You can really see how, obviously, the way of doing it is always comparing someone to a flower. And it's always a bit lovey-dovey to do it, but the idea that with the right ingredients, with the right sunlight, with the right soil, with the right water, that flower develops into its full potential. And obviously, if you mess about with some of those elements, you take away the amount of water, or you limit it to the sunlight, or you put bad soil around the roots of that plant's never going to grow to what is in its nature to become.
And now this is the double binding twist of the whole thing. We say that to have no empathy is bad.
Yeah.
Because it produces serial killers.
Yeah.
Or people who do behaviour that we don't agree with. Then the double paradox to this is we have no empathy for them.
Absolutely, 100%.
So the very thing that we tarnish with a hideous
we condemning
brush,
them, yeah.
we have and we see, and it's like, how can someone kill somebody 7 times? I'll tell you how they can kill someone 7 times. You know, when sometimes you think bad thoughts, you feel angry about a situation, and you have them thoughts that you could do something really horrible, and you probably have reacted badly in the past. Yeah. That in this environment we're talking about, no water and no light, somebody raping you, somebody abusing you, then there's a possibility, not saying everybody does it, you can polarise either way, but there's a likelihood they're going to polarise and one day project that anger.
Yes.
And we don't have the empathy to
because
know this.
Absolutely, because we need to learn how to see the reality of what's really occurred to be able to then feel empathy. In the same way that the person that we class as the psychopath that hasn't developed the capability to empathise, it's because they've not learnt it as well. It's a learnt skill, which is going back to your original point, isn't it?
And I think that we have actually learnt it.
Yeah.
I think that we do it all the time. How many times do you get angry, have a belief, or even have a thought that, I wish my boss would just drop down dead?
Our minds are full of that shit, aren't they?
And it's just like, and then if we view it in somebody else, it's just like, oh.
Well, it is. It's and you know what? Let's have a look now. So let's look at early childhood behaviour. If you watch most kids, whatever toys they've got, those toys are theirs. And parents don't really like it when a child snatches what they believe to be their toy. They go, no, share. So there's an impulsive, instinctual part of human nature to take what they believe is theirs for their own sense of well-being and security. However, they learn then through their survival mentors, which are the gods that they call mum and dad, that is wrong. So then the wrongness of you being you becomes secondary to this impulse in a sense. So ultimately, if you imagine now, you have those natural thoughts like you did when you was a little kid. Imagine being free. Little Dennis, little Mavis takes your toy. The instinct was to just clonk him on the head with the toy that you want, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then secondary to that is, I've done something wrong, Mummy and Daddy shouted at me. So there is a psychotic, one could argue, lack of empathy, impulse inside of all of us. That doesn't mean we're psychopaths or wrong. It means that's human.
I'm being really straight up about everything. There's no self-defense. I'm really sorry what happened about everything. I was in this, to me, this world is nothing but evil, and all of us are full of evil one way or another. We have evil in us, all of us do. And my evil would just happen to come out because of the circumstances of what I was doing. Hitchhiking, hooking, on the road. And so learning how to be a hooker as a hitchhiker eventually got tiring. In the end, I carried the gun for protection, but then I got where I was getting a real problem, and our rent was due, $1,200 behind. Tyra was doing a lot of beer drinking and stuff. She wanted to go out all the time, so she was burning up the money I was making. But I'm coming clean before I go in that execution chamber and be executed. That I killed him. I had pretty much had them selected that they were going to die.
But I heard, that you just couldn't stand being on death row after 12 years.
Nick, this is the last time I'm going to say it. You have to kill AileenWuornos because she'll kill again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think this is the problem as well. We've got it like all backwards.
Back to front.
We see it. I've seen a quote right today. I've seen a quote that says, how come there's so many depressed people? Now, for me, it's not that there's so many depressed people. Every human being has depression. Every human being has ADHD. I think these are all just human traits that we've merged and labelled and said, oh, we can highlight this and say we're not functioning right because we're not doing a certain thing that's normal.
There's nothing worse, imagine. I mean, I believe we're speaking about something that there's fragments of it out there within the awareness. But in terms of mainstream, the mainstream's 20 years beyond these thoughts. Because somebody with ADHD, we could probably put down to the fact that they've learnt some difficult behaviour, or they've not had certain emotional needs met, or not been able to express themselves completely clearly. And that type of difficulty creates difficulty in behaviour. That behaviour is a symptom of them trying to regulate their emotional state to ease some sort of discomfort. And what is discomfort? Some sort of trauma, some sort of suffering, okay? Which we all have. I have it every day. So this isn't any attack at parents whatsoever. But if we look at the fact that deep down inside all of us, before we learned, or as Sigmund Freud would say, that superego takes effect, which is the parent going, no, you can't do that. That's bad. That's naughty. We was the id, as Sigmund Freud would describe it, this impulsive, self-preserving little monster, basically, that wanted everything for itself. And what we've done is, through the superego, through being told it's wrong to want to take for ourselves, we now condemn it when we see a lack of empathy inside somebody else. Does that make sense?
100%, mate. And I think that the cure for that would have to happen over generations. You can't sort of get it when it's too late. You can't.
No one's at fault, are they? It's like a collective cultural mind program that's been passed down, and no one's at fault.
If we all agree from tomorrow, from day one, we get this education into classes, you can see the next generations would see mental health as a human trait, as a sign that I don't understand emotions, that's it.
And let's look at the outcomes. So people are thinking, what the fucking talking about, man? This woman, this monster movie-based woman, Aileen, she killed 7 men. She killed 7 men. Well, let's look at it like this. If we realise that everybody's born with a lack of empathy, now, again, we could be completely wrong, but we're just talking about observations that we've made. If everybody's been born with a lack of empathy and through the right environment they've learned how to empathise, what those people need that we condemn to be psychopaths is to be able to learn how to empathise, but we don't know how to create that environment for them. And as a result, we get people murdering. Now, the conclusion to this is this: if we get more awareness of ourselves and begin to identify ourselves in the psychopath and relate to them, we could create better systems around them to give them the nurturing that they never had at a young age, which enables them to learn to empathise. And it won't happen with every psychopath, of course it won't, because maybe the damage is too far gone. But if that environment that you've created for them through the knowledge creates 20% of those to learn empathy, you've just cut down murders and homicides down by 20%. It's a step in the right direction, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it would be massive if we even higher statistics than that, because first of all, what's stopping that from happening? There's a massive barrier that you've got that ever stops you feeling uncomfortable. You will be saying now at home, I don't ever think like that. I don't have bad thoughts. You do. You have 50 to 70,000 thoughts a day.
Yeah.
70% apparently negative.
Jenny got the job. I didn't. I've worked harder than Jenny. I've not had many days sickness as she has. She got the job. It's really pissing me off. Let's be honest. It's okay to be who we are.
That neighbour who's got all the Christmas tree decorations in his garden, he always shows off every
How does
Christmas.
that person afford that car? How did they get a 20-plate registration? I don't understand.
And in the wrong environment, this uglier place where things don't go right, over and over again, you're going to turn and project that pain onto somebody else. And in this form, it's a mental health illness. That you kill someone, that's mental health. That's mental health.
And the only antidote to mental health, in my opinion, is education and awareness. That's literally I believe the answer to it, because I believe that with education and awareness, you begin to identify yourself in the people that you condemn to be the monsters, and as a result of that, understanding and education equates to a sense of love. It's a sense of oneness between me and you. You're not the monster anymore. That we are human and we have these flaws. You went without nurture and love and empathy growing up. So of course you're going to be someone that has no empathy and hurt people, and you're going to act out that pain, that trauma that you went through.
Just think of a simple one like humour. Have you ever met someone who just doesn't ever laugh at anything or never says any jokes? They grew up without humour. It's the same as empathy. Yeah. It's a skill to learn.
And the unconscious instinct is to judge and go, what's wrong with them? As in, everything's right with me. It's like, I know it's silly and the culture doesn't really appreciate it these days, but some of the wisdom that the stories through the Jesus and the Bible is the idea that he who cast the first stone, you know what I mean? He who has not judged cast the first stone and stone that woman. Again. I know I'm going to Jesus, but it's there's so much philosophical psychology beauty in some of the parts of the Bible outside of religion. If it was adapted into a book of psychology and expanding people's awareness, it would be the best thing on the market.
I think I know what I am, by the way. I think there's a word out there called omnism. Have you heard about it? And it's about someone who doesn't believe in religion, but believes in their stories.
The stories, the myths, yeah.
So
allegory.
Not the whole overall acceptance.
Yes. There's nuggets of wisdom blanketed through it.
Every religion has a sort of collective wisdom and sort of psychology for me. It's almost like a philosophy, isn't it?
Yeah.
But going back to that point that you say, I do agree with you, but I think there's two elements to the awareness side of it. And I think, you know this anyway, the first one is the education and knowledge, 100%, because that guides the way.
Yeah.
And we can do that easily. Education and knowledge is something that humans just absorb. We can do it. But it's the experience for me. It's carrying out that, feeling it, feeling that connectiveness to love and oneness and wanting to help your fellow man and not to judge someone. That's massive. When you realise you judge an opposite person and it's actually you, it's a pure reflective image of you. When you say that person, it's because you want something that he's got. You can't have something that he does. You don't have the personality, or you despise a personality because it's a reminder of something for you. So the experience of the awareness will make you see what we're talking about isn't actually madness and isn't like a couple of hippies just trying to, spread love and do the right thing.
No, it's not. There's a formula to it. It's not. Love's a word that describes a state of being as the result of following a certain process. You follow an educative understanding of looking at human behaviour, and the only byproduct of that is a sense of love and compassion and empathy. So it isn't a hippie philosophical look at it, but also if we look at it scientifically, and I will go toe to toe with anybody that disproves it, if you put people in the right environments and take care of them, of course you will get probably the odd ones with the old genetic debate of nature and nurture. You will get the odd ones that will still seep through that net and still show signs of being psychotic. But ultimately, in the right environment, people will grow into right people.
And then again, when you say that about nature and nurture, maybe we will not pass genetic sort of memories down through brains and tissue and biological forms. Do you know what I mean? If we all learn this education and knowledge and awareness and become this, Friedrich Nietzsche's got an idea of the overman. This we are just a bridge to a higher intellectual person.
Yes.
This, I believe, can exist through us now. There's a few percent of people who do the right thing and are loving and caring and give stuff back. We've seen people on the podcast who do that. Yeah. And these sort of people are this overman. They've learned the secret.
They're walking across that bridge, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're bridging that gap.
Unfortunately, it's 95% to 5% at the moment. Yeah. But imagine the whole collective. It goes into schools. We learn from the age of 16. A teacher can turn around to you and say, "Are you okay there? What's wrong?" And you pick out the bullies and you realise they're the ones that...
little kid at home just says, "Mummy and Daddy have been hurting me."
Yeah.
Or Mummy and Daddy, they love me to bits, but they're just not there enough.
There is no such thing as a bad person or a bad kid. That woman in the serial killer, did you think she grew up wanting to kill 7 people? Come on. It's like, did she want to be raped? Did she want to be abused?
No. Did she want a dad to be a convicted child molester and leave the family at 1 year old? Did she want a mum to abandon her? Did she want to be adopted by her grandparents and a grandfather abused her? Did she want to look for fulfillment and love through just giving sexual acts for money to survive? Of course she didn't. All she learnt was to feel worthless and nothing and not needed. So of course that pain is going to go out at the people that have abused her, which was, let's look at it, be honest, it was men. In this situation.
And do you know what she even said as well? She said she didn't even hate men. She said she just had a category of men that were vile. And these are the other people that just wasn't loved.
So understanding evil. I think we've summed up a little bit there, haven't we? So thanks for sharing that, Craig, all right?
Yep. And one more thing.
Yeah.
Hit you with another bombshell.
Oh dear, go on.
So basically, why, this question, and I know that we've had this debate before privately, maybe not on a podcast, about love. Let's just say that love is the default setting, no matter where it comes from. And I think that scientists, religious people and spiritual all believe in this philosophy. I've got my own doubts about it, but I know you're a big believer that we just have this default setting of love and that's it, right? We sort of grow up in an environment and we get ripped apart and we become that monster, that evil. and we just want to return to love, and we just want love, even unconsciously. We're thriving for it.
Yeah.
Now, whether that's a mechanism to survive as an animal, or it doesn't really matter, but it just seems to be there.
Yeah.
Now, for me, I think that we've got to think of ourselves in a separate way, not the biological human being, but just think of this in terms of energy. We are sort of an energy, a vibration, always moving. And if this default setting is love, and it's in the wrong environment, and it's never really even taught to a child that the default setting that you'll always have is one of love and comfort, then we are always going to be sort of vibrating on a whole different frequency.
Yeah.
And I think that this is the key to understand it better than the biological way that we look at the world. I think
I agree 100%. It's an energetic type of field that what love is, isn't it? It's a movement from
electric sort of network for me.
I've got you. And let's try and help people understand that now. So if people at home watching this, close your eyes and get a sense of you. Now, if you could get a sense of you, and let's really look at you with your eyes closed, how would you describe what it is that your experience of you is? For me, it's a sense of, it's like an energy that you call you. That energy has been given a name, like Craig and Andrew, that you identify with. But underneath that name, you are, the best way of you describing you is a sense of energy, or what the gurus would say is a sense of I am. But it's an energetic type of experience, isn't it? An energy, you feel sad. It's a low, heavy energy, depressed, quite similar. Ecstatic, it's a high, vibrant, fluctuating energy. Happiness, laughter.
What about the times when you're even switched off? Do you know those feelings where you're like unconscious and you've drove home and you've like had 10 minutes where you don't even know how you got home?
Yeah.
Sometimes the plug's off.
You've gone, yeah. The you that you define yourself to be, which is this conscious person, has gone, and you've just been like driving down a road, not crashing into anything, staying in your lane while you've been thinking about, oh God, I don't want that dinner when I get home.
And to think that this energy can switch onto autopilot, so you don't even have to be there with it.
No.
And I think of it like this. When you put a plug into the wall socket, the electric is always running. You put the plug in, but you still have to switch a switch on, don't you? There's still one last mechanism for it to come through. For me, switched on is pure love.
Yes.
Everything else is you are off, basically, to me, if that makes sense. Yeah, I've got a question for you as well, Andy, putting you on the spot for the final time in this.
You haven't really put me on the spot, to be fair. You've just talked about your fevers, haven't you?
So basically, something that I do that I didn't realise that I did all the time, but it's a good thing, and it might be a good tip, but you could tell me the therapeutical side if it is. I get the normal urges to moan and whinge and rant about life, and I don't like that feeling. And I know that I have to, I'm ranting and going on about myself, basically being miserable, no desires met, attachment, and it makes me miserable. So this is what I do. In the traffic jam, going to a job that I don't want to go, and I'm unhappy, and I start moaning in my head, the old inner dialogue's off. I'll think of a worse perspective, a more difficult position I could be in. So I put myself homeless in my head. At least I'm not homeless. At least I've got a job to go to. Some people haven't got a jobs in this time of COVID.
Go on, get to the point.
So basically just negative thinking. But it seems to rewire and sort of, again, probably makes me feel grateful for where I'm at.
Yeah.
So a worst case scenario, I always think of probably 10 times worse than that.
Yeah.
Is this a therapeutical tool that people could use?
Well, the only thing I would say is it would work for people because it has for you. And that's the beautiful thing about therapy. It's about finding out what works for the individual in front of you. Does those therapeutic tools make you feel better with your current reality?
It does this good instant effect for me.
Good.
When you have the reality, if you mentally get into a reality that you're far worse off. You've just been diagnosed with something incurable, something so crazy, and then you just feel that for like a split second. It's like you're happy to do anything after that.
So it makes you feel better, doesn't it? Then it's worth it, 100%. So, and it's probably the best type of self-love. Finding things that make you feel best about your current situation and sticking to them and making them a routine or even a ritual in a sense, you know what I mean?
Trying to get back switched on, I suppose.
Yeah, so whatever it may be, as we've seen with some of our guests, we don't believe with every philosophy that every guest has, but the philosophy that we've got is, does their philosophy make them feel empowered, give them a sense of well-being and purpose and meaning? If the answer is yes, then who are we to fucking question what that is? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that brings us to an end. Thank you, Craig.